Terry Wallace. When he arrived at the club, took you guys to places you'd never experienced before, and left on bad terms in 2002.
Yeah, I really enjoyed most of my time under play. We were 15th, effectively last on the ladder at the end of 1996, and we had all those things happen at the end of that year with players trying to re-sign and everything. We finished third the following year. What a ride. I mean, incredible. We played a prelim the following year, a final series for the next 3 years. It was a great ride, and from that perspective, a very enjoyable time within my career. I played a lot of my best football in that period as well. So from that perspective, I've got a respect for play in that sense.
It went sour though, didn't it? It definitely soured in 2002. I mean, for the coach and the club, and I suspect for Chris Grant and the coach.
I just think, I think from both of us, I think Plough probably, in defence of him, probably looked at us as an ageing team, thinking, okay, where's the next opportunity going to come from? And I think I always respect coaches for their views, and always respect them for the path that they're going to take the football club on. And I think as a player, you have to believe that. They're in that position to take you on a journey, and if you don't believe it at any point in time, then you've just got to make that cut right there and then, because one person within a footy club can actually bring the whole place to its knees. So from my perspective, always as a player, I might not agree all the time with what a coach has to say. I might not have agreed all the time with what Plough was doing with the team, or where we were heading, or the way he was going to go about it. But come game day, I always, okay, what do you want me to do? And off we go. And I think from also Plough's perspective, I wasn't in great form. In 2002, I was really struggling along, just battling. I just couldn't get a continuity in my game, couldn't draw the footy. And you get in those positions as a player, and I think he sort of felt that he'd probably lost some confidence in me. I'd lost confidence in myself. But I did feel that perhaps the difference between us was that I probably needed more support than that. I needed...
From him?
From him.
Yeah.
I just sort of felt that perhaps that support, that real deep support, wasn't really there. And when you start to feel that as a player, it's really difficult to deal with it. You want to believe in the coach, and you want him to believe in you all the time, absolutely. And I sort of felt that was probably weighing heavily on me.
The end of 2002, Plough said, from memory, Plough said he'd lost the passion for either the job or the game, and announced his resignation from the Bulldogs. Wanted to coach a farewell game.
Yeah.
A group of players, with you among them, thwarted that plan of his.
What do you want me to say?
Well, I mean, when did you consider it an unreasonable request? Did you think that he'd abandoned you guys and therefore was not entitled to a farewell appearance?
The pointy end of why we came to the decision for him to just leave then and then. Does it matter that it's 1 game or 3 games or 10 games? Plough's major reason, one of the major reasons anyway for leaving, was he just sort of felt like he couldn't get this group to where it was going to go to. And behind the scenes, he had said that the young players in the team weren't going to develop, and we hadn't drafted well. He wouldn't have said that publicly, but when we felt that, and we looked at those young kids, and he'd lost not the trust, he'd lost the appetite to actually teach those young kids how to play the game, you have to walk away straight away. That doesn't sit well with anyone. And I think even in reflection, as much as it was a big thing at the time, I think Plough needed to actually make that cut as well. I mean, it came to us to make that decision, but I think at the end of the day, you either sit on your hands and just get through the season with 1 game to go, or you sit up and you say, okay, well, I'm going to coach out the rest of the year. Do you want to? But you've got to believe that I am going to be entrusted with that final game of the year. And we said, well, under those circumstances, no.
Was it personal or not, or was it professional?
No, because you could make it something personal between Plough and myself. But it was 9 guys in the leadership group sitting around with the president and Jim Edmund, the football manager at the time, saying, well, what are we going to do? What's the best thing to take this football club somewhere? And I look at Mitch Hahn and Lindsay Gilby and Robert Murphy and Nathan Brown and those kids that were coming through, Ryan Hargrave. If I looked at those kids and said, well, just get through one more game, guys, even though he's not believing in you, get through one more, guys. I can't do that. I'm the captain, but I rely on my leadership group to help make that decision. And the consensus was that, okay, the best thing is to just make the cut now.
After the break, Chris, I'm afraid I'm going to have to take you back to the pain of the 1997 preliminary final. Any interview with any Bulldog of the time, we always get back to this game. Should you have won that game?
No.
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 Why? Why not? I mean, you were beaten by 3 points. You and Paul Hudson both went to a loose ball on the goal line with 90 seconds to go.
Yep.
You kicked it and was smothered, I think, by Tyson Edwards.
Yep.
The look of pain, I was sitting in the press box, just along from the coach's box. Terry Wallace was mortified, and you guys on the ground. You all gave the impression that this is the one, this is the opportunity we've blown, and we could have won the flag.
The reason you lose games of football is because you're behind on the scoreboard and you've done some things in the team to allow the other team to win the game of footy. Now, we were very good for a big portion of that game. Was it our closest ever moment to actually winning an opportunity of getting into a grand final? Absolutely. Has that opportunity been lost? Absolutely. At that point, as soon as that final siren goes, that opportunity is now lost. You don't get another opportunity for 12 months. So all of that is weighing heavily on you and emotional about that. But we were 23 points up. We were 30 points up at one stage and we lost the game of footy. It doesn't matter if it's in the last 3 seconds of the game. Was it your best opportunity? Yes. Did we deserve to win it? Absolutely not. I mean, the premiers for that year ended up being the Adelaide Footy Club, deserved premiers, because at the pointy end of the season, they did things well enough, often enough, and for long enough to win the game.
The 1996 Best and Fairest Award. You shared that with Jose Ramiro.
Yeah.
I wrote a story in the Herald Sun, I think 5 years after that award, saying that in fact Ramiro deserved to win that award, and that the votes were contrived to make sure that Chris Grant shared the award with him. Now, I don't take any great pride in that because probably you found it insulting. But did you explore that? Did that move you to make some inquiries about people around the footy club?
Of course it did. Of course it did. When you rock up to a footy club and there's an article that you'd written, I think it was on the back page or somewhere close to that, when you walk into the door and they say, "Oh, are you okay?" and you say, "What are you talking about?" and then they show you the newspaper and they sort of get around you and say, "Oh, look, don't worry too much about it. Who knows what could have happened." Of course you're personally going to make those inquiries, and I'd sought out Terry Wallace, who was coach the year prior anyway, or that particular year, and Paul Armstrong, who was the football manager, and said, "Well, look, one, I need to ask, and two, what are we going to do about it?" The problem was too that Jose, who I was really close to, I had a really great relationship with Jose when I was playing, and even when he retired, had a really good relationship when he was on our board. And I sort of said to him, "Mate, if there's any truth in it, all I can say is I'm sorry." And he said, the great thing was, he said, "Well, even if I was in front, if I had to share it, I'm happy to share it with you." And I said, "Well, okay." And the problem was that we'll never know. We'll never know what actually occurred.
Can I ask you what you feel in your heart about that?
Well, I had a great year. I mean, I played centre back that year and had a stellar year and finished runner-up in the Brownlow medal. And I knew that I had a good year, but sometimes you have a great year and you finish fifth in the Best and Fairest too. So, I don't sit and dwell on it because I'll never get to the bottom of it. But when I go to my coach and my football manager and say, "Well, what do you know?" and the coach says, "Well, my feeling is you had a great year and you well and truly deserve to share it with him, if not win it." So from that perspective, I feel reasonably comfortable with it. But will the question always be there? Maybe.
What about the observation of Dennis Gallimberti, who was the CEO that year, who said when he left the football club, Jose Ramiro couldn't be beaten for the Best and Fairest?
How much weight do I put on that? Very little.
Why?
Very little. Dennis had a lot of good things to do in the football club and did a reasonable job, but he also had a lot of axes to grind, and sometimes from that perspective, as far as the argument is concerned, I'd rather go to the coach at the time and get an honest answer for him than someone who'd been asked to leave the football club as CEO and then 5 years later have an attack on someone.
I want to ask you one thing about your role as Director of Football at the Bulldogs. You were involved in the appointment of Brendan McCartney as coach.
Yep.
The pre-post favourite, one of the other leading contenders, was your very, very good friend and long-time teammate, Leon Cameron. How did you deal with that?
The most difficult thing I've ever been involved in footy. With all the disappointments in footy that we've spoken about, that's probably number one. Close playing relationship with him, played our first games a week apart, had a great win in his first game in Sydney, great playing memories together, had a great business relationship with him outside of footy for a long period of time, a wonderful clubman, a wonderful bloke. To get in the situation where you're not going to give him the job that he's really chased and longed for and dreamt about was the most difficult thing I've ever been a part of. But it was a group of us and we had to, I guess, put the club above everything else, and we feel we've made a really good choice. Clearly we've made a really good choice, but no doubt the hardest thing was to tell Leon that he wasn't going to get the job.
And my understanding is that you, among others, went to the Cameron house at about midnight, the night you made the decision, knocked on his door and gave him the news that he didn't want to hear, particularly from a mate.
The hardest 15 minutes of my life was to drive to Leon's place, but I hope he respects us for it. I hope he understands that what we were trying to do was the best for the footy club. He'll never agree with it because he was a great candidate, but he'll get his opportunity.
What's been the high point, Chris? Is there one?
No, not one, but it's I walk away with knowing that I gave it my best. It wasn't the best as far as premierships, but it was what I had inside me. I gave all of that to my football club. And I walk away with an opportunity for my family, for the rest of my life, and for Chris Grant to live the rest of his life with a great opportunity that sets you up for life, this game, Mike. It's incredible what it's able to give you. For all the lows it actually throws at you as well, it's a great game. And it's a great game because you see the elation that the guys at the MCG or at the final siren with the win, but it throws up so much more than that. And it's a great journey, and I loved every minute of it. To
invoke an old-fashioned footy term, you've been an ornament to the game, and I mean that. Everyone's loved watching you play. You've made a massive contribution to the Bulldogs and to the game in general. Glad you're back in footy. Enjoy listening to you on radio, and good luck for the future.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me.
This has been a Fox Footy production.